To MATV studios. Dosto, as you know, I am your friend Sathi Ludhianvi, and the program is called Sathi Live. I am here every Saturday from 12 to 1 o'clock, and this program is the socio-political discussion program. At the same time, I bring a guest with me, and the facility you have is that you can telephone us, and the telephone number is local number. It is not a premier line number. So it wouldn't cost you virtually nothing, you know, if you got some kind of contract with the British Telecom or any other supplier. So you can telephone us, and you can make your own input in the program. Today, I got my guest. He is Shaminder PURI, MSc, and he got so many other qualifications, also very highly qualified man. And he is the Secretary General of International Association of Hydrogeologists, and we will ask him what is hydrogeologist later on in the program. And the topic we are going to discuss is about turban. But before I do that, let me introduce you to Shaminder PURI. Shaminder ji, ਸਾਡੇ studio ਚ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ, ਖੈਰ ਮਖਤਮ. And it is a pleasure to meet you here in the studio, although we have met before. And my memory goes back to Pune. Oh, because but I haven't told my viewers is that Shaminder PURI is the son of famous Kailash Puri. Kailash Puri is also known as the agony aunt, and at some time in the future I will bring her here as well. Shaminder ji, the issue which we are going to discuss today is obviously turban. Yeah. And the turban is something which is sacred and actually compulsory. Don't look at me because I'm one of those not without turban. But people who wear the turban, they feel proud, and it is part and parcel of Sikh religion, and that's why you are having the turban. But the issue comes up again and again about turban, that the people with turban are being discriminated against. And there were some unfortunate incidents also in America and other places, because they were associating the turban with a certain section of Middle Eastern and Asian community, and they wear the turban as well. But the people cannot, I'm talking about the people who are racist, who are not able to understand the difference between the two kinds of turbans. And that is why we are discussing this issue as to how we can improve our image. And you are also doing a campaign actually. The campaign is called respectthestargmail.com. That is your email. And the campaign you are starting is that we got to improve the image of turban. Let me hear from your own words, what need the Sikhs need to do.
Thank you very much for a very kind invitation. It's a great pleasure to see you from my childhood now to a person who's a little bit older, or perhaps much older. So it's a pleasure to be here and to meet with your audience and to engage with them. And I think the first thing to say is that Sikhs wear their turban as a mark of recognition that once you wear a turban, you are upholding social values. You're there to defend the innocent. You're there to protect the people who may have not been harmed in any way. And that is the principle of Sikh religion, which our gurus gave to us. Mm-hmm. And wearing a turban ensures that we adopt that responsibility in a very, very well set out way. Mm-hmm. The problem is, not many people in the world understand and recognize this. Yes. How do we go about doing it? Mm-hmm. Yes, I think there is a need to conduct a very well-prepared campaign. People are working on it. We now have Sikhs wearing turbans in the House of Lords. Mm. There is a Sikh who is a Prime Minister of a major nation in the world. There are prominent Sikhs who are in United Nations. There are prominent Sikhs.
A chairman of the Planning Commission, Montek Singh, he is wearing a turban, and J.J. Singh, and so many other prominent Sikhs are in a very prominent position in the world. Yeah.
So it's not as though we're lacking, respectable people. It's a matter of getting the image right. And I think a very well prepared public relations campaign is what I think we need to be doing.
Yes.
In addition to what individuals do very well.
Yeah, that's great what you're doing. But मैनू एक याद आ गई गल क्योंकि ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਕਿ many years ago I was in Greece and we were at an island which was very isolated and we were having a coffee and this guy comes to me, he didn't know enough English and he says, well, you from London, India? I said, yes, I am from India. He says, what do you think of Sikhs? That he was trying to say. I said, well, they're respectable people. No, they are murderers. That is the word he used. I am specially mentioning this because that is the image which was portrayed around the world about the Sikhs, because at that time Indira Gandhi was assassinated. Okay, but Gandhi was assassinated, but nobody attacked the Sikhs. But then what happened after Indira Gandhi and what happened in Delhi and Kanpur and other places, and then there was discrimination against people wearing the turban. So what I'm trying to say is that after that, when I came back from Greece, I went to see somebody in the Gurdwara, a committee. I said, why don't we spend money in advertising in the national press in England and in France and in New York Times, in Britain, in the Telegraph or somewhere else. And they said, well, no, our job is to look after the Gurdwara and other things, and we are not going to do that. But are you saying that these people, who got the money, who got the responsibility to look after the interests of the Sikhs, do you think they should be coughing out some cash and advertise and publicize the importance of the turban?
Yeah, I mean, this is true that the past events that have taken place have tarnished our image. Now, there is no reason why we can't get away from this tarnished image. It's very easy to do that. And I think what we need is a concerted effort. Although the Gurdwaras do a very good job in maintaining the faith and the religion, I don't think it's their job necessarily to do this. Because their job is to keep the community together and to build the community. It is the job of professionals, it's the job of people who are in senior positions, it's the job of people who are industrialists to come together as a parallel line of support in order to raise awareness. And it's not very difficult to do.
What I was saying was, these, of course, they are doing a great job, looking after the interests of the Sikhs, and they're maintaining the faith issue through Gurdwaras and other places, religious places. But what I was saying was that they got the resources to publicize these kind of situations. Because I have met quite a few Sikhs actually who were complaining that they were asked to remove their turban at the airport and things like that. And they said, well, nobody is helping us. I'm sure nobody is going to help you from outside of the faith to create an image of your turban. It is the Sikhs who got to do this.
Well, let me give you my own example. I was asked to remove my turban at Warsaw Airport in Poland. I was not the only one. A series of other people, Sikhs, businessmen, etc., being asked to remove the turban. And because I speak Polish and I went to university in Poland, I decided that I should take a stance. And as a result of taking a stance and raising the awareness as hard as I could, I have got the Helsinki Foundation, a very important NGO that supports human rights, which has been campaigning on my behalf and has been promoting a court case against the Polish border guard. So it's not just the Sikh community, although, of course, it's essential that the Sikh community takes its responsibility. I think there is a place for bringing together the Gurdwara and the secular society, and we have to recognize that the Gurdwara's job really is to keep the faith going. When they can participate in these kind of awareness raising things, this is excellent. But much more than that, I think it's the people who are outside. You know, the British doctors, British Sikh doctors. There are people who are well-known scientists. There are people who are in the United Nations. I think these people need to come together. They need to join into this campaign for raising the awareness, a campaign for ensuring that the Sikhs are recognized for what they are, because Sikhs are recognized to be upholders of the community, builders of the world. We are adventurous. We go anywhere to create working conditions. And so I think this is what we should be trying to promote and do as much as we can.
Yes. The Sikhs, are, as you said, you know, they are everywhere in the world. You know, they're doing good businesses and they are in professional jobs, especially in America and here in this country also. The point I was trying to make was when you talk about these people who are the security people at certain airports, you mentioned Poland, and some people will mention Milan in Italy and other places, which is obviously wrong. I agree with you. What was the reason behind it? Because what I saw is when I go to the airport, the people with the turban, if there's a bleep, they got a handheld thing, you know, they circle around the turban, and if there's a bleep, then they say, have you got anything hidden in your turban? And if you suddenly remember that perhaps it is the pin, you know, we put a pin on a turban, maybe it is that. Then you suddenly remember that the kanga we have, in the kanga there is a small symbol or metal symbol, maybe that is doing it. Do you think in your case that was the situation, or you thought there is kanga, there is that symbol, but I'm not going to remove my turban?
Yeah, well, no, the situation in Poland was, the situation in Europe started in August 2009 when the EU introduced some new regulations. And these new regulations are very sensible regulations. They're to try to make sure that the airports are safe, with which we agree. The problem was that some airport authorities decided that all external clothing had to be removed, and they classified the Sikh turbans as an external clothing. It's a perfectly sensible, perfectly possible mistake to make. But once the awareness has been raised, then this mistake should not be raised, should not continue. Now, in the case of the UK, they immediately took efforts and prevented this kind of nonsensical demands. However, countries such as France, countries such as Italy, countries such as Poland were not aware. And in my case, in Poland, I did everything I could to raise the awareness. I wrote about a large number of letters. I engaged with senior officials. I engaged with a lot of people. And it became, in the case of the Polish situation, just a nastiness on the part of the border guard. And I'm very pleased to say, as a result of all the work that we have done, including support from the Sikh community, the armed forces of the border guard, who were these nasty people, have been removed. There is also a new regulation which has been passed by the EU in February 2010, which says that in respect of human rights, particularly in respect of human rights, any turbans, any religious wear of this kind should first be checked by a metal detector or by a series of other methods that they've got. And in Poland, unfortunately, prior to this EU regulation, they would not conduct any other check apart from remove your turban.
That is simply wrong. That's simply wrong, because we got the detector. If that detector believes, only then you can say.
Absolutely.
The question which I originally asked you is because somebody was pointing out, as a matter of fact, one of my relatives, he was asked to remove the turban at a certain airport. And they said, well, why don't you try to think what is bleeping? And then he suddenly remembered that he had some pins in there and everywhere. And he removed that and it was okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there can be some kind of understanding also on the part of certain passengers?
Well, yes, I think the Sikh Council of the UK and other Sikh organizations have issued guidance to Sikhs. So we should make sure that all the Sikhs know this. And, you know, this guidance is very sensible guidance. It says if you have a salai or if you have a kanga or if you have a, you know, remove it. So it's not a big deal. I mean, you know, and now I make sure that I don't have a pin, that the turban is long enough so that the last lad actually closes the turban. It's not a big problem. I mean, it's not as though it's something that is shameful or difficult to accept. I mean, you know, but if we follow the regulations, and we're law-abiding people, key thing is we're law-abiding people, and we consider that if somebody is carrying something unacceptable, then they should be made to remove it. However, in order to avoid that, if we follow the Sikh Council of UK's guidance, and variety of other Sikh organisations have issued these guidances which say, take the metal off. So when I go through the airports, I take my watch off, I take my car off, I take my belt off, I take everything else off, make sure that there's no pins or anything in my pocket, and I go through. In fact, I also take my spectacles off to prevent anything happening. Yeah. And I'm happy to say that certainly in the past several months with a lot of international travel, there hasn't been this problem felt. But nevertheless, there is always a possibility of this happening again. There is always a possibility of the perceptions being wrong, and we as Sikhs and the Sikh community, the educated, the well-established Sikh community, and all the other members of our community need to come together. We should come together to promote a sensible campaign, a sensible campaign that says, look, we're Sikhs, we wear turbans, this is part of our clothing. And as part of our clothing, we expect to wear it. We do not expect, as a result of that, to be receiving. Yeah,
but there is, you know, you can speak in English, you know, you can make people understand. But ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰਾ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਇੰਨੇ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਲਿਖੇ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਤਾਂ ਘੱਟ ਹੀ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਘੱਟ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਦੂਸਰੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਾਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੋਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਫਰਾਂਸ ਦੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨਾਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਪੇਸ਼ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੈਨ ਵੀ ਵਰ ਟਾਕਿੰਗ ਯੂ ਆਲਸੋ ਮੈਨਸ਼ਨ ਕਿ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਮੇਡ ਟੂ ਰਿਮੂਵ ਦ ਟਰਬਨ if the belief is still going on. That's what you said.
I said that if there was something which was thought and found to be potentially a danger.
No, how will they determine that? I mean, if the belief goes on and on and on, and the person is saying, I got nothing, then the guard is right, you think, to ask you to remove the turban?
Well, I mean, there should be no reason for the bleep to go on unless there's some metallic object, because these things just test magnets, anything metallic. And there are other machines available. There's a puffer machine, and you go into a little cabin, and the cabin takes a puff, and it measures the chemistry of the air that you're breathing. So 99.99% of the time, if you don't have anything in turban, it will not go off. However, if it does go off, then you have to demonstrate that there is nothing there which is dangerous. And there are lots of ways of doing that. And the reason I'm saying that people may be made to remove turbans is, who knows, somebody may have decided to pretend that he's a
pretend that you're a Sikh. Yeah. That's another issue as well.
Pretend that they could pretend that they're Sikhs, and they might be carrying something that is unacceptable. And at the end of the day, even if there is a fellow Sikh who is carrying something which is not acceptable, then I think that is a criminal offence, and a criminal offence has to be dealt with in a criminal offence way. So I think.
Shaminder ji, break the time ho gaya.
Hanji.
After the break, we will carry on talking. Dosto, I'll be back talking on the situation of the turban, in the world, in certain parts of the world, Sikh are being misunderstood, and there were some unfortunate incident also, especially in America, especially after 2001, after this Twin Tower incident. And as I said, he's started a campaign to give more respect to the turban. And the email ID I am going to give you is this: Respect Sikh Dastar, respectsikhDastar @gmail.com, and you can express your point of view. You can cooperate with him, to start this campaign. And there are 3 actions he is saying that we should be taking: is right to express serious concern to the Polish Ministry of Interior Affairs, right to British Embassy in Warsaw to request the strong intervention, help with donations to fund the legal costs for defense, and action at the level of the European courts. It is the last point I was referring to when I said that our religious institutions, they are the ones with the money. However, let's proceed with the next segment of this program. Shaminder ji, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੱਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ ਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਰਿਮਾਰਕਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ 2001 ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ। ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਇੰਡੀਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਚਲੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਬੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਰੁਝਾਨ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਲੀਨ ਸ਼ੇਵਨ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ, ਦਸਤਾਰ ਨਾ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ। ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਲੇਟਿਵ ਦੀ ਮਿਸਾਲ ਦਿੰਦਾ, ਯੰਗ ਮੈਨ ਦੀ। ਉਹ ਬੜੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਸਜਦੀ ਸੀ, ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਠੀਕ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਆਲ ਆਫ ਏ ਸਡਨ ਆਈ ਸੋ ਹਿਮ ਐਜ਼ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਨਾਓ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਤੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਿਉਂ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਕਾਲਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਮੈਂ ਹੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਸੀ, ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਮੈਜੋਰਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਦ ਬੋਇਜ਼ they were from Sikh families. ਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਮਜ਼ਾਕ ਉਡਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ। I was feeling embarrassed all the time. That is why I have done this. What do you think how those youngsters can be reassured?
ਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਠੀਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਨ ਅ ਸੈਂਸ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਲਵ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਆਰਮ ਫੋਰਸਿਸ ਐਂਡ 에ਅਰਵੇ ਐਂਡ in the Air Force, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹੈਗੇ they look smart, they look up to date, they look very well dressed, and ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਡੇ youth ਨੂੰ we have to support their confidence. In my own case, ਮੈਂ ਪੋਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ 5 ਸਾਲ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ, ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ 5 ਸਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਾਰਾ 5 ਸਾਲ। ਐਂਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੱਗ ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਤਾਰਦੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੱਗ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇਨ ਅ ਮੋਰ ਇਫੈਕਟਿਵ ਮਾਡਰਨ ਵੇ, ਕਿਉਂ ਪੱਗ ਪਾਉਣ ਨਾਲ does not give you a discriminatory situation. Now, जो तुसी कहते पे this is right कि unfortunately सब जगह आजकल जो fashion देखो, if you look at the fashions of New York, and there has never been a sardar there in wearing modern up-to-date fashions. But why not? Why not some of our Sikh entrepreneurs? There are many of them in the world. Why doesn't somebody start a Sikh wearing model who will also model the
as a matter of fact, in New York there is one a Sikh young man with the turban, and for a while his picture was actually portrayed in Times Square. I saw that on the television.
Exactly. we have one. Why don't we have 100? Why don't we have
You're right.
500?
You're absolutely
so
right.
Why don't we have one of our very entrepreneurial members of our community out there in the world to start this and to build the confidence of our young people that wearing a turban does not give you a disadvantage. It doesn't stop you from doing sports. It doesn't stop you from going out. It doesn't stop you from doing all the things that young people do, but wearing a turban.
ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਤੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੇ, ਔਰ ਇਹ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਲੰਡਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ 'ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਘੱਟ ਕੋਸਟ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਲੋਕਲ ਲਾਈਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ 'ਤੇ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਊ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਰਕਰਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਭੁਲੇਖੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਰਗੇ ਲੋਕ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਸੁਧਾਰਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ। ਇਹਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸਾਡੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਮਿੰਦਰ ਪੁਰੀ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ ਪੁਰੀ ਦੇ ਬੇਟੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਬੜੀ ਹਾਈ ਪੋਸਟ ਹੈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ, ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੋਸਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਆਲਸੋ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਆਫ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਹਾਈਡਰੋਜੀਓਲੋਜਿਸਟ, ਔਰ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕੌਮਾਂਤਰੀ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਨੇ, ਅੰਤਰਰਾਸ਼ਟਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਸ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਵਿਦ ਯੋਰ ਟਰਬਨ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਪੀਪਲ ਆਰ ਸਟੇਰਿੰਗ ਐਟ ਯੂ, ਲਾਫਿੰਗ ਐਟ ਯੂ, ਔਰ ਸੇਇੰਗ what is that, you know? Did you feel any time some kind of embarrassment?
Yes, of course. We live in the real world, and in the real world, unfortunately, there are many parts of the world where there is a sort of a derision to a Sikh walking down the street. And then you have to make up your mind as to whether to turn around and answer him or her, or to ignore it. And it is a case-by-case situation. And I think many of the Sikhs that I know here in the UK and in the States have the confidence to be able to either ignore an ignorant person or to make the case, and make the case in a well-stated way. So I think, yeah, I mean, you know, I think anybody who is in any way deformed until not so long ago was also the subject of derision. Anybody who looked a little bit odd was also the subject of derision in the old days.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that, you know, Sikhs are in any way less mortal than anybody else, but I think we will have this, but we need to stand up to it. We need to stand up with confidence. We need to stand up with ability to say, well, you know, you're wrong.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely, that human nature is such. We are prejudiced against one thing or the other, as you said rightly, you know, if somebody is deformed, disability है किसी किस्म दी ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਰੰਗ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਰੰਗ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਦਰਅਸਲ when the word immigration is spoken, they are not talking about East European with white color. They are talking about people with different color, different look and things like that. Yes, I agree with you on that one. But the difference between staring at a disabled person and the difference between the people who are looking odd and a Sikh, because the Sikh, when they look at the Sikh, it is the religion and the culture comes into that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, unfortunately, the picture of the turban has been associated with Islamic terrorism.
Yes.
We have to recognize this. As a result of this, we need to change the perceptions. We need to get people to understand. And it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult to demonstrate that the Sikh turban is actually quite different from all the other turbans.
Yes.
First of all. Secondly, Sikhs are recognizable by a variety of ways. And we can make that as part of the public relations campaign. Sikhs are distinctive by wearing a kara. Sikhs are distinctive by a whole bunch of other signs. And I think it's not so difficult for us to put this into the understanding of the world. And we can do this by a variety of ways. Programs such as yours, this one. Other programs on the TV. And we have personalities now in the UK. We have Hardeep Singh Kohli, who's seen on the TV. There's Lord Inderjeet Singh, who's seen on the TV. There's a well-established cricketer who's also seen on TV. And we're all British. And we're British and we're proud of it. We're British and we're proud of it. We're Europeans to be proud of it. And nothing should stop us from our ability to communicate. As it happens, I speak Spanish and Polish, which allows me the ability to speak to the Poles and Eastern Europeans and Russians and all the Spanish-speaking languages, which opens up a huge way of immediately opening up the understanding. So if there's a Sikh who is not able to
You're right,
speak,
actually, with the television image, because when we talk about, you said Islamic terrorism, because Osama bin Laden, he was wearing a turban, that's why. Because as you said, you know, we got to be very blunt what has happened actually. But the image of that particular turban was created by the media. You know, they were showing him again and again, for obvious reasons also. He was shown again and again and again and again, and there was that image of the turban there. But the Sikh turban is different, as we know. But the Muslim, that turban which we are talking about of Osama bin Laden is not very much visible in Europe, in America and other places. But even then, the turban which we see of a Sikh turban, that should be understood really clearly. I think the best way of resolving this problem, apart from the other issues which we have discussed previously, is to give more and more image on the television. Because that image of Osama bin Laden was actually given to the world through that, and that's what we got to do.
Yes, I mean, it's the media is one area, but there is an immense amount of ability these days. We have the internet. we can use the internet in a lot of very up-to-date ways of projecting the difference and the qualities of the Sikhs. It's not very difficult. Open up a whole series of Facebook pages, set them all up, and demonstrate that we are Sikhs and that we do not pose a threat. Unfortunately, when you go to Facebook these days, you do not see many Sikh pages set up. Now, it's not very difficult for our community to get together for people who are prominent, who are people who are known, to have these Facebook pages. If we have Mr. Manmohan Singh together with a whole bunch of other prominent people, Lord Inderjeet Singh, Sardar Mota Singh and others, with prominent Facebook pages and Twitter pages, and if we have 60 million people following them, well, 60 million people will change their views about the way Sikhs are. Now, this is something people who are old like me are not very good at Facebook or Twitter, but why not Jai Singh Sohal? Jai Singh Sohal is a young Sikh who's formed a superb campaign about terminology. He's got his Facebook pages underway. Well, copy that, make hundreds of those, hundreds of young Sikhs, and disseminate that through the internet. And the media will follow. These days, media actually follows.
Yeah, that's what I said. The whole image was created by the media, of that person. And that has been applied on the Sikhs. Talking about your own campaign, you specifically mentioned Poland, but as I said, there are other airports as well who are not following the example of the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, we in Britain, when I say we, be British, whatever denominations we are of, we understand the importance of the turban and they don't ask you to remove it. But you specifically mentioned Poland and some other places like Italy. What your campaign is all about? How can you tell in simple words?
Within the European Union, we have now achieved a significant positive victory. There is a regulation which is an amendment to the regulation that I mentioned earlier on, and every Sikh should make sure that they get themselves a copy of that regulation, and I can send it to you if you email me. That regulation is issued in all the EU languages, all the 15 EU languages. You take the copy of that regulation with you to any airport, and you make sure that if you're in Spain, you show the Spanish version. If you're in Hungary, you show the Hungarian version. If you're in Croatia, you show the Croatian versions. And you should then not be asked
to
remove a turban.
Don't you think you should really ask Brussels that they should circulate this in all the languages, to all the airports, and say that there is a difference between a Sikh wearing a turban and the other community?
That is our job. The EU has done its job. They have issued, the European Union, the European Commission has issued a new regulation. They have done their job.
To all the airports?
Yeah. Every member of the EU is obliged, legally obliged to follow this regulation. So they have done their job. Our job now is to make sure, because it's our job to disseminate this. It's the job of the Sikh community and the campaigns such as mine and others to make sure that if ever there is any occasion on which Sikhs have been insulted, then to immediately get in touch with campaigns such as ours, United Sikhs, Sikh Council of Europe, and we will then immediately write to them. We will write to the right person in the agency, pointing out the regulation and asking for an explanation as to why the regulation was not followed. This is as far as the EU goes. Beyond the EU, outside the European Union, there are other things that we have to do. So our jobs is twofold. First of all, to implement and to see the implementation of the regulation. And we can form a Sikh community or a Sikh committee or a Sikh group which actually monitors this. And once we monitor it, we ensure that the regulation is followed. EU regulation is followed by many countries in the world who are not EU member states, so that for the accession countries which are joining the EU will also have to will by courtesy follow the same regulation. So we have won a significant victory, but we haven't made that clear to neither our own community nor to the rest of the world. And I think that's what we have to do. And your program is one of the programs from which we would like to make sure that this message goes wide as far as possible, so that we are not insulted for any unacceptable reason.
दोस्तों, अगर ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਰਮੀਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਉਤਾਰੋ, ਔਰ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਬੈਰਸਿੰਗ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਔਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਮੇਨਲੀ एनवायरनमेंट ਬਾਰੇ ਇਨ ਦ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ ਆਲਸੋ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ਪੁਰੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਰਕ ਹੈ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਔਨ MATV। ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਟੈਲੀਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੇ ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਬਤਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਈਮੇਲ ID ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੋਟ ਕਰ ਲਓ। ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ drsathi drsathi@hotmail.co.uk ਔਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੁਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਪੁਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਪੈਸੇ ਹੋਣ। ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ 100% ਸਹਿਮਤ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਚਾਹੇ ਮੰਦਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਉਹ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਧਰਮ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰੇਗਾ, ਚਾਹੇ ਮਸਜਿਦ ਹੋਵੇ ਉਹ ਇਸਲਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਦੈਟ ਇਜ਼ ਦੇਅਰ ਜੋਬ। ਦੇਅਰ ਜੋਬ ਇਜ਼ ਟੂ ਟੈਲ ਦ ਪੀਪਲ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮੁਕੱਦਸ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਹੈਂਡਡ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ, ਜੋ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਕਰ ਲਓ। ਦੇਰ ਇਜ਼ ਨੋ ਸੱਚ ਥਿੰਗ ਐਜ਼ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਲੰਚ। ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਰਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰੋ?
ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣੀ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਠੀਕ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਇਨਕਮ ਆਇਆ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਇਨਕਮ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਲੀ ਸਪੈਂਟ, ਲੇਕਿਨ they should also out of morality, out of moral reasons, support करने चाहिए इस तरह के campaigns जो है करते हैं। वो करते थोड़े campaigns, लेकिन it's not a consistent way, and it's essential, I think, with due humility to the gurdwaras, कि तुसी गुरुद्वारे should support us with the funds that you have, because without the funds nothing is possible. And मैं तो ये दस सकता हूँ कि मैं गया सी तो गुरुद्वारे में मिलने वास्ते मैं समझाई गल कि सारा केस चलता पे इस केस नू पैसे देने पे यूरोपियन NGO नॉन गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ यूरोप असी अपने आप सिख कौम विचों इकट्ठा करने चाहिए पैसे। मैंने जवाब मिले भी जो तुसी अरदास करो। मैं क्या भाई अरदास मैं 2 बारी करदा दिन विच, लेकिन अरदास सिर्फ अरदास नाल गल नहीं बनती। सो गुरुद्वारा नू ये बेनती होनी चाहिए कि अरदास दे सिवाय you should support us. Some of the well-to-do Sikh ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ again ਸਾਥੀ, they could help as well. I would like to admit that Lord Inderjeet Singh of the NSO has supported me in an explicit way with funds, and I think this example needs to be repeated in Gurdwara after Gurdwara after Gurdwara. 50,000 euros will allow us, or 50,000 pounds will allow us to fight a well-planned public relations campaign, take this court case up to the European Union and establish within the EU legal framework that Sikh turbans are not a hat or a cap. That's what my campaign is trying to do. And we need to establish that in a legal framework, for which please make a contribution from the Gurdwaras, from the community, and from our entrepreneurs.
Okay. Shaminder ji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਮਤਲਬ ਮੈਂ ਉਮਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਹੋ, ਤੇ ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਆਏ ਸੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਔਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੌਜ਼ਰੀ ਫੈਕਟਰੀ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ ਛੋਟੀ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਰਾਬਾਂ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸੀ। ਮੈਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਸਾਈਜ਼ ਬੜਾ ਛੋਟਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜੀ ਮੁੱਦਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ ਜੀ ਸੁਭਾਗਵਤੀ ਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮੈਗਜ਼ੀਨ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹ 'ਚ ਰੈਗੂਲਰ ਛਪਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ। ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਪੂਨੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਤੇ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਦੇਣ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਪੁਰੀ, ਗੋਪਾਲ ਪੁਰੀ, ਇਹ ਰੀਅਲ ਜੈਂਟਲਮੈਨ। ਮੈਂ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਇੰਨੇ ਭਲੇ ਮਾਨਸ, ਐਡੀ ਉੱਚੀ ਪਦਵੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੈਠਣ ਵਾਲੇ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਹਿਊਮਿਲਿਟੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ। ਜ਼ਾਹਰਾ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਪਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਲਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਤਾਲੀਮ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਹਾਈਡਰੋਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਹੋ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਾਈਡਰੋਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕੌਣ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ?
ਹਾਈਡਰੋਜੋਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਬੜਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹਾਈਡਰੋਜੋਲੋਜੀ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਖੂਹ, ਦੈਨ ਉਹ ਖੂਹ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ। The hydrogeology is the study of the water in the ground. Lekin just hydrogeology, the definition of hydrogeology is much wider because it means sustainable living for nearly 2.5 billion people on this planet. They use groundwater. Nearly 70% of all the world's agriculture is based on groundwater. So the good understanding, the knowledge, the study, the management and the regulation is part of hydrogeology, and that's what I do.
That is brilliant.
And I'm sorry my Punjabi
ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਕਿ what is hydrologist is. However, it's a great contribution, and then we move on to the environment. That's what you're doing actually. ਜਿਹੜੇ environment ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ, when you talk about water, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਓ, ਜਲੰਧਰ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਓ, ਦਿੱਲੀ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਓ, ਮਤਲਬ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਟਰ ਸ਼ਾਰਟੇਜ ਹੈ, ਬਲਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਐਸੇ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪਿਓਰ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੀਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮਿਲਦਾ। ਅਫਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਮੇਜਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਟੈਲੀਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਉੱਤੇ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ, ਗੰਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਪੀ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਉਹ ਗੰਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਪੀਓਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਬਿਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਲੱਗਦੀਆਂ। ਜਦੋਂ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਲੋਕ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਪਾਣੀ ਤੋਂ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ। ਕੋਈ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ਰਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਲਾਈਕ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ?
Broad environmental management is a wide-ranging issue.
Yes.
It commences from the individual in the home and it ends in a multinational factory. It is also part of government policy. मैं ठीक तरह सारी गल पंजाबी च नहीं दस सकता, लेकिन I'll try to tell you in English. And the economic development, all economic development on the planet seems to have come hand in hand with environmental degradation. Each time we produce something, there's some waste. Now, either you can make the waste remain where it is and cause a problem, or you can treat the waste. And because economic development has gone so rapidly, people have ignored the waste side of economic development. And you can see that everywhere. So the cost of the economic waste, the cost of the development waste has accumulated around the world. And this accumulation is reflected in poor quality water, bad air, bad conditions to live in, land from which you can't grow, etc., as well as pollution of the oceans. So what are we going to do now? Well, everybody has heard of climate change. Everybody's heard that there's a need to reduce the amount of carbon that is emitted in the atmosphere. In the same way, we need to reduce the wastewater, untreated water that goes out from our homes, from our factories, from our cities, from our towns. Investment is needed, and we're looking for water treatment of investment of something like $70 billion every year, each year for the next 50 years in order to make any difference. Now, we're in a critical position as far as water is concerned. We're on the cusp of a potential catastrophe. And as a result of that, there are a series of global conferences being held. I have just come back from the Budapest Water Summit, and in 2 years' time, we have the World Water Forum, which will be held in Korea, in which we're trying to make governments adopt new regulations. We're getting industry to understand that they have a responsibility to reduce the emissions. We're working with the United Nations. We're working with the World Economic Council. And we're working with a wide range of people to try to see how we can get this investment in place. And again, we're looking at entrepreneurs to come up with good new technologies which may not be very expensive, which will help us to improve the quality of waste.
ਪਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਰਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿਵਿਕ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਆ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ। ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ, ਆਪਣੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਫ਼ ਸੁਥਰਾ ਰੱਖਣਾ, कोई चीज़ थ्रो नहीं करनी, किते थुकना नहीं है। पानी का मिसयूज़ की तुसीं गल कीती है, पानी जिहड़ा ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ नहीं जा रहा। और ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀਲਿਸਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵੇਸਟ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੇਸਟ ਹੈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਆਈ ਕੈਨ ਗਿਵ ਯੂ ਵਨ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਆਫ ਲੁਧਿਆਣਾ। ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੌਜ਼ਰੀ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ
ਜੀ
ਬਹੁਤ ਹੱਦ ਤੱਕ ਫੈਲੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਉੱਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੰਗਣਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਉਹ ਰੰਗੀ ਉੱਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਧੋ ਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਰੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਤੇ ਚਾੜਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਪਾਣੀ ਰੰਗਦਾਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਅਗਰ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਡੀਪ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਬੋਰਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਫਿਰ ਤਾਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਠੀਕ ਆਉਂਦਾ। ਅਦਰਵਾਈਜ਼ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਉੱਪਰਲੀ ਸਤ੍ਹਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਣੀ ਰੰਗਦਾਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਜਿਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਉਹ 'ਚ ਪੋਲਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਆ। ਇਹ ਹਾਲਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਆਈ ਡੋਂਟ ਨੋ ਹਾਊ ਮਚ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਮੋਸਟ ਆਫ ਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਆਊਟ ਆਫ ਦੈਟ ਕੰਟਰੀ। But what is Indian government doing actually to look after its water?
No government in the world is doing enough. No government in the world is doing enough. And I think the governments have really got to get their act together. In Punjab, there are parts of Punjab where due to application of agrochemicals, the water has been contaminated. And it is a shame, it is a shame that children in Punjab are drinking this contaminated water and suffering cancer. There is a region of Punjab which is suffering cancer. This is another one of my campaigns where I would like to try to get support in order to make sure that no child drinks the water from a well,
which is
drinks
contaminated.
clean water. Because let us at least save the children of Punjab. The children of Punjab need to be supported. So as much support as we can to move away from drinking this contaminated water, as much effort as possible to eliminate the application of agrochemicals, as much effort as possible of the government truly and truthfully saying, we have made a mistake. They have funded and supported these industries which now need to turn around. And we should honestly say to the government, you have made a mistake, admit it, and let's fix it. We're not now blaming anyone. We need to fix it. We need to fix the children's lives.
We should blame where the blame should be put. I mean, the thing is, if you think of Ganges, Ganga, ਔਰ ਜਮੁਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਿਆ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੰਟੈਮੀਨੇਟਡ ਵਾਟਰ ਨਿਕਲਦਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੁਣ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ, ਪਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਵਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਵੈ ਜੀਵਨੀ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੁਝ ਦੱਸੋ। ਔਰ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, this एक किताब अंग्रेजी ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। It's the title again, Pool of Life, and it's an autobiography of a Punjabi agony aunt. As you know, my mother for the last long period was a key person in England as a helper and an understanding and an understander of the way our culture and tradition has made a transition from the life of living in a Punjabi village to an urbanized modern Western civilization. And we have made this transition as a Sikh community significantly faster than any other community. In the UK, it took several hundred years to move from a village kind of life to an urbanized modern post-industrial world. While the Punjabis have made this transition very fast. As having made this transition, they need support. It's understandable the amount of support.
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਇੱਕ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਦੌਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਗੁਜ਼ਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੰਮੇ ਹੋਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੋਚਣ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹੋਰ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ 올ਡਰ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਔਰ ਕੈਲਾਸ਼ਪੁਰੀ ਨੇ ਐਗਨੀ ਆਂਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ, ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ, ਟੈਲੀਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਤਕੜੀ ਦੇਣ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਪਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕਿਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਦਕਿਆਨੂਸੀ ਸੋਚਾਂ ਹੈ, ਰੂੜੀਵਾਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੋਚਾਂ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਿਛਲੀਆਂ ਸੋਚਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਪੋਜ਼ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਦ ਵਰਲਡ ਹੈਜ਼ ਮੂਵਡ।
Sathi, Punjabi culture is very rich. It goes back a long time. It's a culture that needs to be supported and flourished, made sure that even in a place such as England, we can continue to flourish together with the usual life that we have over here. And I think it's a great place for us to do that, both Punjab and here. And I think the Punjabi life, culture and Punjabi way of behavior needs to be supported as much as we can. So we look forward to that.
Let me ask you another question. You are the son of a mother who is a great writer. ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪਈ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਹੋਏ ਐਂਡ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਏ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਭਰਪੂਰ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਔਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ, ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ।
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਬੋਲ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋ?
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਮੈਂ,
ਪਰ ਲਿਖਣ ਦਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਹੈ।
ਲਿਖਣਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਆਪਣੇ ਮਦਰ ਨਾਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ, ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਆ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜੋ ਬਾਹਰ ਰਹਿਣ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ।
ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋ?
ਨਹੀਂ, ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਇਤਨਾ ਆਸਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਪਏਗੀ ਹੁਣ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ।
ਯੂ ਨੋ ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਜਸਟ ਯੂਰ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ। ਮੇਰਾ ਬੇਟਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ
ਜੀ,
ਪਰ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਬੋਲਣ ਲੱਗੋ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਵਾਬ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੋਲੇਗਾ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਡਿਫੀਕਲਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਫੀਕਲਟੀ ਹੈ। ਵੈਨ ਆਈ ਗਿਵਨ ਮਾਈ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ, ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਗਿਵਨ ਯੂਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ, these are the representative of the situation। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਰਸਤਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਪਏਗਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਬਲੇਮ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ এনवायरमेंट ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੂਵ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੋਲੈਂਡ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਉੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੋਲਿਸ਼ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨਾਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਰਵਾਈਵ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਕਰਦੀ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਔਰ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਲਿਪੀ 'ਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤੇ ਐਨੀਵੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਅਨਫੋਰਚੂਨੇਟਲੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਦੁਆ ਕਰਦਾ, ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੀ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਹੈ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਹੋਵੇ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਟਰਬਨ ਬੰਨ੍ਹਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬੜੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਬੰਨ੍ਹਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਹੋਵੇ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੰਨ੍ਹਦੇ ਔਰ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਨੇ ਕਰੂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਮੱਤ ਆਵੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੰਨ੍ਹ ਲਓ।
You're part of us. You're part of us.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much for coming here, Shami.
Thank you very much.
It is a pleasure, and we will meet again, of course. And I will also bring your mother, Kailachi, to the studio, and we will talk to her as well. So, dosto, that was our program. I hope you liked it, and maybe there is something wrong with our telephone line. We haven't received any phone call. I think there is. We will look into that. But nevertheless, thank you very much for joining us, and I sincerely hope that next week from 12 to 1 o'clock you will join us again. Thank you very much.